Mr. Phillip Telesford. Now, Mr. Phillip Telesford, he has been here before, so he is no stranger to some of you, but he is the present caretaker. And for those of you who are not acquainted with the term caretaker, in our political, cultural environment, uh, the caretaker is someone who is earmarked to become the candidate. It is not a given, although in most instances that's what would happen, but it's not a given that the caretaker ultimately will become the candidate in whatever election that follows. But that's the route, that you go, you become the caretaker, and then you become the candidate in the general elections. So Mr. Phillip Telesford, he is the caretaker for the St. George's Southeast constituency. That is the constituency where Mr. Gregory Bowen is the parliamentary representative. So ultimately, he will be taking on one of the heavyweights of the NNP in the forthcoming elections, because these two elderly gentlemen haven't seen it fit. They don't feel that they have reached the retirement stage. The public workers, they retire at 60 and they don't have a pension. These men have pensions and they still don't want to retire. So they're still there. So Mr. Telesford is going to be the man coming up against Mr. Gregory Bowen. And he is also going to be, he's also not going to be, he's also offering himself. In fact, he has offered himself for the position, or to be considered for the position of the leadership of the National Democratic Congress, the NDC, which will be having its convention sometime in the next couple of months. Okay? So, without any further ado, the pleasure is mine to welcome once again to GEM FM and to the Comfort Zone, Mr. Phillip Telesford. Good afternoon to you, sir, and welcome.
Well, very pleasant good afternoon to you, Pablo.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we're good with that.
Yes. And to Brother John Calliste.
Yes.
And to all of our listeners, those at home here and in the diaspora. Afternoon to you all. Afternoon to my wife, who I believe might be logged on. And to all of my family, all of them, everybody, and friends who are listening in this evening. A very, very pleasant good afternoon to you all. And I look forward to having good conversation. Yes.
Well, that's what happens here on GEM FM, good conversations. And to start the conversation here this afternoon, I want to start by asking you about your bid for the leadership of the party, for which we've seen promotions on one of your Facebook pages. So what can you tell us about that bid for the leadership of the party?
Okay. Well, thank you. That is what you call a very speedy baptism. Yes. Well, following the NDC's General Council meeting back in March, and having heard so much and in the plans that we have as an organization, having assessed where we are as a nation and where we want to go, and after having close conversations with a number of my family members, first and foremost my wife, of course, and my parents, many others, children, and close associates, I have also been requested off by a few very close friends to consider the leadership position for the party. It was not a very difficult decision to make because I recognized that there was indeed a need to sort of broaden the choice for members of the party who would convene sometime in August to make such a decision. And having looked at it, having discussed, I thought that there is a very, very good chance for my being able to succeed at the leadership of the party and be able to fundamentally bring about the so needed lift that the organization needs at this time. Well, one must understand firstly that I cannot be considered to be a politician. But what I know and what people know of me is that I am a leader. I am a man of action. And I have been involved in some walkabout activities, touching base with people, hearing their grievances, seeing their needs, and so on. And I recognize the fact that what Grenada needs at this time is not another politician. They really don't want that. They need someone who can competently lead this country into a fundamentally different direction. Grenada needs a visionary leader who is capable of taking action, who is capable of being decisive, taking actions for the greater good of this country. Grenada needs a visionary leader, someone who carries a vision and who has something that can fundamentally change this country. Having heard a number of my colleagues, I considered it necessary for me to get in the race and to compete for the position of leadership and win, hopefully, by God's grace.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that you are not a politician, because actually that's one of the comments that's been made of you by people who you may consider to be detractors. You know, comments like, he's not suited for a politician, he should be a preacher, he's more suited for a preacher man. How do you respond to that?
Well, yes. Well, I do preach. So those who do not know and recognize that gift in me, indeed, yes, I do have that gift. Yes, indeed. But I've had many conversations with people at a grassroots level, and I can say for certainty, Grenada is fed up of politicians who come to them once every 5 years to lie to them, to fool them, and to forget about them. Grenadians are fed up of that. We learned over the past 2 decades, or 3 decades or so, that politics is about how well you can lie and how well you can thief. Yes? Because the current holders of the office of governance in this country has done that and made it appear as if this is what you must become if you ought to be successful. So you got to fool people, you got to take people for granted, you got to, well, look at the last election, for example. That one stands out to me so boldly that the leader of our country would stare into the eyes of some 30,000 Grenadians and say to them that I am going to restore pension. We are going to drill for oil and you are going to have money. 30,000 people. Not three, 30,000 people. In my view, that is one of the most the coldest behavior of any human being, knowing the state that Grenada was in at the time, and it's even worse now. That you will take people on a journey. You can't sit down. A journey that you got to keep moving. A journey of development and prosperity for all. A journey that money will flow and oil will be drilled. A journey that the pension that our public servants, after 30 and 40 years of hard labor, given everything that they have for this country, you take them on a journey. And immediately after, you shut the door on every single one of them. Forget them altogether. And you now redirect your business into minding the affairs of what he terms billionaires, his billionaire friends. Well, Grenada, mind you, is not a billionaire country. Grenada is about poor people. The vast majority of us are poor people. The vast majority of Grenadians struggle to send their children to school, struggle to find 3 meals to support their families, struggle to find a job, struggle to even get in the, the roadwork program.
Or the bushing.
Struggle to even get a little bite in that. Vast majority of us. So we're not a billionaire country. So you turn your attention to them, neglecting healthcare. I tell you, one of the worst places to go in Grenada is the emergency unit of the Grenada General Hospital. Worst place. We turn our back on agriculture. We turn our back on our carbon resources outside there. Or maybe it's sold and we don't know. Because you know how we operate in this place. And so many other things that has happened. So many. And what has happened in the process? What has happened? Apart from the impact of COVID, apart from that, you've seen Grenadians getting poorer and poorer and poorer. And our resources are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Because you know what we do? We give it away. Yeah? We give it away. Under the guise of the citizenship by investment programs and what have you. So, I'm saying to us that if you're a patriot of this country, you cannot see these things and keep quiet. When you look at what happened to Grenada and the Newfield situation there in the south of the island with the CBI project, when you see these things, you got to rise up. Something has to happen because Grenada, as a nation, cannot continue like this. Even if you want to, even if you would like to, we cannot. So there is a huge deficit for leadership in this country. Huge. Huge. You know, one of my brothers in the NDC told me yesterday, anybody in the NDC is better as a leader than what we currently experience. That is how desperate Grenada has become. You just put anybody and it will be better than what we have. Well, I say to us, we deserve better and we can do better. Grenada is filled with bright, brilliant, intelligent sons and daughters. It might shock you to know that a number of unemployed youths in this country are walking around with master's degree in their hands. Cannot find anything to do. Master's degree. And so we must provide opportunities. Our young people are crying out for change. They have nowhere to go. The youth of the nation wants to build a future too. Youth of our nation have ambitions too. So if you can boast, if one can boast of $19 million and don't lift a finger to invest in anything in this country and to root our people out of poverty, then I say to you, you ain't ready yet. You ain't ready to lead this nation yet. The time has come, my brothers, the time has come. Grenadians, the time has come for us to arise out of our slumber, examine the resources that we have, because we have people. We do have people that can lead this country. And I am sure that I am one of them. And that is why I'm offering myself for leadership of the party and by extension, our nation. And together, we can redirect our nation in the right direction. Together, we can build. There are too many patriotic Grenadians living in this country who want to make a contribution to the development of this country, but is not allowed to do so. That is why.
Yeah, go ahead.
That is why we need a change of leadership, one that is open-minded, broad-minded enough to embrace the talents, to embrace the patriots of this beautiful country for growth and development of our nation.
You speak about people who would like to participate, people would like to play a leadership role, but at some level, but not allowed to do so. And that's one of the situations that we have. But on the other hand, we have people too who are not inclined to get involved at the political level, because we need political leadership in order to get to the governance component of things, because that is the process through which we determine who's going to be responsible for managing the affairs of the country, for the governance of the country. So you have people who, you said your wife and your mother and so supported you in offering yourself, but I've come across people whose wife don't want them to get involved, or whose parents don't want them to get involved, or whose children don't want them to get involved, because the political waters has been so muddied. And the mudslinging is so prevalent with this NNP under Dr. Mitchell that a lot of people don't want to get involved. What do you think it's going to take? Given, I accept that the first thing that will have to happen is for the government to change. But outside of that, what do you think would have to happen to change that kind of mindset eventually? Because as you said earlier on, people are saying that they're fed up with politicians.
So the mindset regarding people putting themselves up as politicians, I don't know how much of that will change in the near future, because it is what it is. Getting into frontline politics, one simply have to, in my view, when it comes to mudslinging and so, you have to simply say to yourself, I am ready to face this. This is about country and not about me. And be prepared to defend yourself when the time comes. Yeah? Be prepared to defend yourself. Yeah? And if one cannot defend himself and is not prepared to defend himself, yeah, then I think you're on a losing wicket already. So I am prepared to defend myself. Because a number of persons ask me about this, and I say to them, look, I speak the English language. I speak English. And he who tries to pull me down using the English language, I shall defend myself using the same English that he or she uses. As far as the mindset regarding voters are concerned, my response might be similar in that I do not know how much of that you expect to get changed in the near future. But what I know, in this season and in this time, there is a very specific call that is being made by the Grenada population. That is, they want something that is new. They want ideas that are innovative. They want to see the young people coming to the fore and participating in the political process. Yes? They don't want to see people just coming once every 5 years. They want to establish relationship with you. They want to know you. They want to understand you. Because the reality is, those who have been serving there for 30, 40 years, or almost 40 years, 20, 30, 40, all of these times, by and large, the population knows them. Yeah? They may not see them as the best of characters and the best when it comes to truthfulness and integrity and honesty and all of that, but they already know who they are. So those of us who are coming on stream now, our work is cut out. We must get to know and be also known by the population. Yes? And so right now, I have phased my work. So right now, I am more or less working towards an August date. With a number of other initiatives which is being planned. After that, I believe when I ascend to the leadership of the party, I must immediately transition within a very short period of time from that of a localized NDC leader to that of a national leader. And that will take some doing, because we cannot do as we always did. So it has to be different. The approach has to be different. And it has to be consistent. And it has to be genuine. Yes? No doubt about it. The NDC as a political organization has the best plans and the best programs. Any intellectual person who can read and understand things will tell you that. What do we need? We need a serious driver who knows how to drive organizational and national policies. That is what is needed. We don't need another lazy man who is limping himself to his desk. We need people with energy and vigor and vibes and enthusiasm who will wake up every day, even if I'm not feeling well. Will face it because it's about country, it's about patriotism. That is what Grenada needs, and I'm prepared for this.
Speaking about what Grenada needs, you mentioned the fact that you will have to transition from a localized leader to a national leader within a very short time. It therefore means that you must have a perspective of what that entails when you get to that juncture. I don't expect that you're waiting to get there to know what you need to do. What are some of the things that you think you will have to undergo in order to make that transition? And what are some of the qualities that you think you bring to the table at that level?
Okay, well, good. Yes, I do bring some qualities. I'll answer that first. I do bring some qualities. One of it is my experience in finance, financial management, and in business in particular. And of course, I worked in the hotel industry for 21 years. So of course, I bring some very good hotel experience. I am a practicing farmer now with one of the largest farms here in Grenada, that large poultry farm. So as a matter of fact, I grew up in agriculture. That's what I know. But decisiveness, clarity of vision, yeah, being decisive, having a clear head as to what you're going to do and doing it in spite of, I believe this is what is going to cause a moving of the needle, if I might say, yeah? But in the context of what I need to do to transition, I've already spoken to a few persons. Most of it would have to do with subjecting myself to training. Subjecting myself to training. One of it, of course, would have to do, with protocol, being able to speak properly, acquainting oneself, and most importantly, acquainting myself with some very pertinent pieces of legislation, some very important aspects of history, both from a party point of view and a national point of view, understanding the dynamics as to why we are here. Because what we don't want is to be able to repeat mistakes. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. So a number of those things have to be set in place. The training, yeah, preparing to govern. I think that is one of the single most important things that has to happen. We cannot, it makes absolutely no sense for an opposing political organization desirous of forming a government with a bunch of people who have never served in government, who is not prepared to learn how government functions first. Right? So we must, and I have held conversations. We must know the proper functioning of the upper and lower house, and not just know how it functions. We must, our officers, our candidates, our personnel who are within the management structure, and those who are likely to get appointed to certain positions, yes, whether they're going to be appointed now or sometime in the future, our people within the construct of the party must be properly trained. What does it mean to function as a prime minister? Who is the best person to teach you that? Must be one of the prime ministers who served, or those agents, and those agents who serve very closely to previous prime ministers. And that does not necessarily have to be a Grenadian doing this. But we must also understand that we have a lot of resources here locally who is able to do that. The functioning of the Senate. training our people to be senators, to be ministers, to be cabinet colleagues, understanding the functionalities, to be directors on boards. But those things will happen. Yes? So all of those different facets must be brought into play very, very, very quickly, preparing to govern. Because we cannot. The state that Grenada is in right now, we have no time to waste. Day one on the job is a working day. A working day. And this is what it has to be. The truth is, many of us have very solid private sector experience. Yeah, including myself. Very solid private sector experience as business persons. We have one or two who have served in the Senate, a few who have served in the Senate. We have some who served at various levels of government and so on, and as PSs and so on and so on. What do? We must now embrace all of these people and tap into these resources, tap into these talents, yes, so that we all come to a place where we are prepared to govern this country in our respective roles. This, I believe, is what is going to make the difference as to how we succeed in government. Yes?
Speaking of that, how important do you think institutions are to the whole issue of governance and economic growth and development?
Well, for me, institutions is the bedrock, the foundation of society. Almost everything around us is an institution. The family is an institution. But in the context of government, the various institutions or institutional frameworks that is designed for the proper functioning of government, it is important. The judiciary, the upper and lower house, the cabinet, and all of these institutions, the Governor General's office and all of that, Prime Minister's office, all of the various offices and ministries and so on, institutionally speaking, being brought together is what makes a nation. They are the bedrock of a nation. And that is why, like civil society, for example, excuse my voice, will champion the protection of institutions. One would recall Uncle Tilly. He always championed that because he understood as a patriot, as a man who loved this country, as a man who was prepared to give his life for this country, he understood without institutions, without independence for some of these institutions, you don't have anything really. Because together, they act sometimes as a check and balance to level the equation or to balance the equation in a way that the society as a whole benefit. So yes, institutional protection, institutional development, institutional enhancement is important and fundamental for the growth and development of our nation.
That being said, as we spoke about institutions, we find that in our political culture, there is a tendency to be taken in and to be drawn in by the excitement and the entertainment elements of the campaign, more so than that of the issues and the decisions that we make as to who we choose, to manage our affairs, to represent us in the House of Parliament and so, is not necessarily based on the people who, a development agenda, let's say, but mostly on the excitement of the campaign. But after the elections are over, we expect all of those services that government is supposed to provide, like healthcare and stuff like that. What do you say to those voters who are mostly driven by that fun element of the campaign and not taken in by the issues as much as they ought to?
Okay. My brother Glenn yesterday reminded me that we gotta be we gotta be careful to distinguish and separate certain things. And I want to do the same here. We must distinguish two elements, two things that you just spoke about. One is called campaign, and the other one is called voting. Now, campaigning usually lead up to a voting event. Yes? Remember, we are human beings. So we all need to have a form of entertainment. And entertainment, and because we are human beings, it means we smile, we laugh, we show emotions, and all of that. And these things are important. We dance, we carry on, we have good time. So human beings need entertainment in order for them to feel satisfied and happy and joyful. Yes? So it is an important element in any campaign activity. So one should not play that down at all. But a campaign activity is different to voting. So entertainment within the construct of a campaign takes you up to a certain level. So let's say for example, your campaign event goes on for 3 months, 90 days. At the end of the 3-month period, there is a separate and distinct event called voting. I was also reminded that not everybody have this kind of reasoning power, or power to reason like this. But it is important to say these things, even if everybody does not reason like this. They are two separate events. Campaigning is basically an event to cause people to want to support you as a candidate for the respective area. Usually. Well, this is the way it's supposed to be. But what we've seen is that people vote according to colors and party. Yeah? But it's really people should be looking for a representative for the area who can represent my interests at the seat of parliament to bring reward to my village and to my person. So there is nothing wrong with an election campaign that has a lot of entertainment in it. Yes?
Yeah.
But what we should never do is to trade our vote for a campaign event. At that very sobering time in our life, when we go to actually vote, one must appreciate no one can see your vote, no one can trace your vote, no one knows who you vote for. And people need to be educated about that. Because when you go to vote, one must remember where we came from as black people. I'm not a racist, but I need to say that. Because we have a history of slavery, that blood was shed for the right to cast our ballots. Yes? Adult suffrage. So because of that, because when we put that dreaded X in that box by a candidate, even if you don't like the candidate, but you like his policies, when you put that dreaded X, it is for the development of your nation because you have to live with it for the next 5 years. It is not the same as campaign. Campaign is over already. At least for the last 24 hours, campaign would have ended. Now is the time. So when you place an X, if I give $100 or I take you to a show and you vote for me, well, not me, let me not say me, and you vote for a candidate based on that entertainment, based on that $100, you have just sold your vote and you just voted for yourself. You voted for me. Yeah, voted for yourself. But if you go into that booth and you say, okay, yes, campaign, but that is history. I am now making a conscious decision. And this decision now is not about $100 I received or the fridge or the stove. I am now voting because I'm thinking about the next generation. I am thinking about my son or my daughter. I am making this vote because I know if I vote in that particular corner, I am now saying to a government or a party, you can continue selling out my birthright. You can continue to disrespect me publicly. You can continue to sanction police brutality against me. Yeah? If you know that that is the case, regardless of how much you're paid, you just cannot make that vote. So when you vote based on entertainment and money, you're just voting for yourself. That is a very selfish vote. Very selfish vote. One must vote not for the politician, but for the next generation. For the next generation. When the vote must mean a protection of our national heritage. A vote must mean the development of my country. The vote must mean a development of my healthcare, agriculture, agro-processing, science and technology, scholarship for all. And this is not just wishful thinking. One must hold a politician to these ideas. So that if we begin to vote like that, Mr. Tomfoolery will not come with that the second time around. He would never look at you in the eyes and say, money, my money, your money, and this kind of foolishness. I will give you pension and the next day walk out of the hall and just forget about you. He will be thinking now that, A, if I do not deliver on my promise, I will lose my job. That is what it is. And so I say, this is how I could answer your question, that you must separate the voting and the campaign, entertainment versus the actual event, and say and know that when you vote, it's a vote of patriotism, not a vote of self. It shouldn't be selfish.
Well, I would hope that more of our voters come to that realization that we should be voting more based on the issues rather than the entertainment element, because that is not going to build the institutions that you require, and it's not going to provide you with the services that you depend on from government. I want to say a special good afternoon to all of those in the comments section who some of our regulars are here with us. I saw someone had put a comment in there which they have since withdrawn. But just to speak to that issue, Mr. Telesford, as a member of the National Democratic Congress, which anyone who is a member has the right to so do, they have the right to offer themselves for any position or any office within the leadership structure of the party, whether it's at the constituency level or at the national level. So Mr. Telesford is offering himself. There are others who are offering themselves. Okay, and you're likely to see them coming here before the convention is held also. We do know that the sitting political leader, he is going to be on the cards also. So it's not a case of he imposing himself on anybody. It's a matter of, it's a democratic institution, the National Democratic Congress it is, and a convention is going to be held. There are going to be election of officers at all levels of the leadership, right? For the National Executive Council, okay, that's going to be up for election, and whoever it is that the people at the convention, the delegates at the convention elects, that's who is going to become the leader of the National Democratic Congress. Okay, so I hope we understand this clearly. It is the Democratic Congress, and it is a democratic process we are going to be going through. And after that, what you're going to find is that there's going to be that person who's been elected as the leader will have everybody else in line behind him as the leader going forward. Okay, you did say, Mr. Telesford, that one of the reasons why, after coming out of General Council, and when you listen to some of the plans and so that the party has, which means that even before you offered yourself at that level, the party already had certain plans and so on, initiatives that you feel is worthwhile. Can you share with us what are some of these plans you see that the party has that can be worthwhile for the development of this country going forward?
Yes, Pablo. Well, the NDC over the years has preached its plans time and time again, over and over. Okay. And they're very good plans. And so I believe that we need to embrace those plans as a nation. The marriage, for example, of the science and the technology with agriculture, that marriage of science and technology with agriculture will transform the way we conduct business in the agricultural sector. It is no longer the backbreaking thing and the fruits hardly bearing and we are struggling and pull me one kind of thing. If we apply the science and the technology the way that we intend, it will now become an exciting and rewarding experience. I say to you, I try not to bring my farm into this. I say to you, when you look at what I'm doing here on this farm, the science and the technology, you know, I brought in some day-old chicken, quite a lot. And when I brought them in, they all rush to start drinking the water from the nipples. And somebody asked me, how do they know where to go? I said to them, well, the color, the cornea in the eye of the chicken is attracted to a particular color or set of colors. And then the little thingy that the nipple that it drinks from, like a little worm, is a natural attraction to the bird. So that is science. Understanding the makeup of the bird, it is science at its best. So even if they do not know it's water there, inevitably they will be attracted to it and they will start beaking it, and so they will get water. A lot of that, the control of Everything inside that chicken house is by a touch of a button. Everything, from the feed to the temperature control, the lights, you name it, the heating, everything, ventilation, everything is about the touch of a button. Yeah? And that is only one aspect of farming. There's so much more that can happen within the sector and other sectors. So, agriculture, fishery sector, healthcare is another burning issue. Our party has always championed, since in the 80s, for a brand new hospital. Brand new hospital. I know we have done a lot of work there with the one that we have. But just the location and it's so cumbersome where it is for traffic and everything else. I mean, it makes good sense to have a hospital in a place where you can have proper parking to visit your loved ones. Yeah, if we have a stadium next door, if there is a small event that requires to rush 30 persons into the hospital, we have a disaster on hand. Just the traffic alone would be a nightmare. Just being able to service them in the emergency unit, it's going to be a nightmare for us. Yeah? So we have championed that. Education, scholarships, reaching down to the grassroots communities, to the very soul of our nation, to ordinary men and women, or boys and girls, who otherwise would have never had an opportunity. That is what we are about. The development of all sectors, including our marine resources, oil and gas. The record will prove that we have done an immense amount of work, and we were that close to drilling. In comes Mr. Big Stuff to squash everything. I'm saying to us, there is so much, just so much that can be gained from having an NDC government. One that will drive initiative and innovation, youth involvement. This is what we have here for youth involvement. We know it's not youth involvement. Grenada is a quasi-dictatorship. No, it's a fact. It's one man running the show. And so, unless one man sanctions every single thing that happens, you ain't going to see anything done. And so, I'm saying, yes, leader. We need a leader. One of visionary. One who is able to deliver. Yes. But one who knows how to listen. Listen to what the ordinary Grenadian has to say and take action about it. That is what we stand for.
You mentioned the issue of agriculture and how agriculture, the different elements that you can have in agriculture and the relationship with ICT and other areas of development. We know our Prime Minister has been the Prime Minister responsible for ICT within the OECS region for some time now. How effective, or if you have to rate his performance in that regard, how would you rate his performance? And how well do you think he has done, given that his flagship program is about young people, it's about youth, it's the Holy Grail. The Imani program is the Imani Grail, is the Imani, it's the Holy Grail. How much would you say that he has done in terms of preparing these young people at that level of ICT functionality?
Right. So I will not attempt to grade him because I did not hire him. He graded himself and recognized that he was failing, or he had failed And that is why I took the ministry for youth. Now, I am much, much younger than him. And sometimes I feel that technology is running way ahead of me. Can catch up. At his age, can you imagine? Can you imagine what is going on there? There is a vast difference. Vast difference. Now, the things that my son and daughter does on the computer blows my mind. There ain't no way, with all due respect, my father is older than Mr. Mitchell, and so is my mother. So I don't bash, and I cannot bash senior people, because they're the ones that are responsible for me anyways. But he just cannot be effective. Cannot be effective. Technology, the unfolding of technology in this current era is almost as quick as the speed of light. He would never be able to catch that. It is out of his league. Just to make it nice and simple, it is out of his league. It is not a portfolio for him to try to hold on to. So he needs to simply leave ICT alone for the younger, brilliant heads who are more in touch with what is going on in the ITC world, because it is a world all by itself. As far as youth and the Imani program is concerned, I just cannot rate him. I've never been an Imani. But the Imani people who were there, I saw them rate him on public television or by some WhatsApp message that was being circulated. They gave him a failing grade because they hired him. So with all respect to him, just as technology unfolds so quickly, so too is the dynamism of our youth, our young people. They are that quick, that brilliant. They're not stupid as he might think. I want to say, the Imani program in its current form is not enough. Not enough. And I think he knows that, and that's why they try and empower on different things. It is just not enough. It cannot cut it. Just as how contract work cannot cut it, Imani cannot cut it. And Imani is not even halfway as secure as a contract work. Just think about it. So I am saying to us, we must innovate. We must be creative. We must hear from our young people what they need and stop trying to write prescriptions for our young people from our rocking chair in our retirement room. Allow the young people to say to us what they need and stop trying to prescribe for them. That is the problem. You see, because this autocratic dictating style of the current leader has been so entrenched over the years, he is blinded by the reality of what is unfolding in the technological world and what is happening with our youth. And not to mention, these guys have been there for so long. 38 years is not yesterday. These guys have been there so long in office that they forget what it means to really struggle at the grassroots. So when they come out and they say they love poor people and so on, they don't understand what it means to be poor. Because they have been rich for too long. They are divorced from that type of life. But mind you, they would go to a pig pen and hug up a pig and sleep with a pig to gain a vote. Pigs don't vote. I'm not referring to my people as pigs. I want you to understand what I'm saying here. I want you to understand.
Point taken.
What I'm saying here is not that our people are being discredited. I'm saying here that these guys are prepared to do anything. I mean, absolutely anything to secure their vote. Secure the vote. Anything you can think about. And this is why we are where we are, because some people have decided, listen, election period is just a couple of months, a couple of weeks. Let us do it. Let us dirty our feet. Let us go down into the trenches. And tomorrow morning, we will forget that we made a promise of pension. We'll forget that we promised them oil money. We'll forget that we promised them work you want, work you will get. They will forget everything that they said. There was a time they went so far to say we will have to import labor from overseas. My God, look at where Grenada is today. I mean, there was a time he said that they're taxing people into poverty, literally ripping off the pocket of poor people. As soon as they want, they pile on taxes mercilessly on Grenada. Brother, this is not so much about criticizing. You know what this is about? Facing a reality. We can do better as a people. We can make the right investment in agriculture, marrying technology and science together. So instead of having to use a long cocoa rod with a cocoa knife, you can have cocoa trees no more than 6 feet tall or 7 feet tall, growing in massive quantities, bearing in massive quantities as opposed to those that we have here. It's about time we have some good, nice crops, bring in some new heads of goats, some pigs and sheep and some cows and new stock, so that we can restock what we have. Because the genetics on those have stretched so thin over the years that we don't even know what we have. These are the responsibilities of government. The way we rear pigs, we need to change that. Bring in the science and the technology. Same for the goats. So that people can make real money and that life can become easier for the farmer.
Look, go ahead.
Look.
Go ahead.
We catch huge tunas here. Huge tuna. 500 and 800 pounds tuna. You know what we do? We take these huge tunas, put them on ice, and ship them overseas. And then buy them back in a little can, small like that, and pay $11 and $12 and $13 for it. A little piece of fish soap, $11 and $12 for it. After we sell it out there on ice for nothing. What is wrong with us? My brother, why can't we set up a factory right here? What is so hard in that? To process the tuna and send it outside there and gain foreign exchange right here in Grenada, creating hundreds of jobs. My God, what is so hard in that? Listen, tell me why we cannot set up a fishing school, because there are fishers all around the island, to train our guys in the right technology so that when they leave our shores, they do not have to spend a day or two on the rough seas. But when they leave here, they know exactly where they're going. The size of fish, the type of fish. They catch it and they bring it back and put it into processing and multiply it for the Grenadian people. That is difficult. Listen, if this government is in office for so long and they have not done these things, they will never do it. They will never do it. And that is why I'm saying, both to my people in the NDC and to the wider Grenadian public, just give me a chance. If you give me a chance at this, they will forget what it means to be suffering like this. Because we must do things to feed ourselves, just in case something happens out there and we cannot get a boat landed on Grenada soil. Brother, these things are not difficult. You know what it takes? A will. A will. And when I become Prime Minister in this country one of these days, and I like to talk in the positive, you know, I don't have to even do it. All you have to do is to get a consultant for a short period of time, pay him and say deliver. Done. Of course, the research and all of these things, you know, put the proper studies into place and so on. Done. It is.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to sorry, go ahead.
What?
I was just saying you don't necessarily have to micromanage everything in order for it to be realized, you know.
Vision. Vision. Vision.
Very early in our conversation, it's posted on your promotional page. You say NDC revival, a new future for Grenada. NDC revival. What are you speaking to here when you say NDC revival? Given the fact that in order to get to becoming Prime Minister, you have to first become the leader of the NDC. And what does that revival element entail?
Right. So the revival or rejuvenation of the organization simply speaks to inserting people in the democratic sense, of course, by the way of voting, but that's how we operate. Inserting people who are energetic, who are visionary, who are patriotic and conscious, and is willing to make the tough calls, right? Because, you see, it is not, the rejuvenation is not about things, not about things. It's about a person, individuals, people, the empowerment of people within the organization. I think we need to have a lot of sessions, more sessions, where we can start speaking back to our leaders. I'm talking within the party structure a little, and nationally also, speaking back to your leaders. Let them know how you feel. Let them know what you're thinking. Let them know what you want. Because I am saying that we prescribe things from a distance too much, and we need to now start hearing from people exactly what they want. But it's really about inserting people into leadership who has the drive, the will, and the determination to make things happen. I think we need to be much more, not a little, being too, yeah. We have to be much more aggressive in order to win the hearts of the people. People are fed up of any kind of thing that looks lethargic or lazy or disinterested. They want to see people who are ready to stand up and defend our homeland at any cost. That's what Grenadians are looking for. And that is why my video, I also speak about the youth involvement in both houses of parliament. Both houses of parliament. Because the youth, the young people, like it or not, they will have more energy and more vigor, yes, in them. So bring it out. Bring it out. Let us use those talents for the good of our country.
We see that NDC and NNP, actually over the years, they have had the youth support has been more in their favor. In fact, the youth vote would have been instrumental in putting the NDC, the NNP into office in the last few elections. What do you think are some of the steps that can be taken to help the young people to appreciate the fact that their interests are better served with an NDC administration rather than an NNP administration?
All right. Firstly, NNP as a political organization has some youth. NDC as a political organization has some youth. I think if we were to match youth for youth in terms of youth leadership, we have more quality youth leadership than the NDP. Pay attention to this. Pay attention to this. The problem was not so much that the youth did not vote or support the NDC. And I'm not being naive here. The problem of the last election, apart from some measure of dishonesty, apart from that, is really the party called the National Democratic Congress did not sufficiently and in time or early enough do sufficient to give people a reason to leave their jobs, leave their homes, get up off their comfort zone. All there.
True.
People needed a reason. I remembered the youth of 2018, that rally. I have never seen anything like that on Grenada soil. These eyes never saw that. It was great, fantastic, top notch. That was it. No other political party could have matched the NDC youth rally. They were on fire, honestly. If you want to rate it by event, they would have won. When it comes to the cyber war or the social media war,
social media battle. Social media banter.
I would say that the NDC as a political organization edged out the NNP. Social media battle. So that's two battles they won. Who more gravitates to social media? Our young people. Who does more of the social media? The young people. But I remember Brother Nazenberg on the eve of election came out and he spoke, and I heard his wife speak. And I said to my wife, if only this man would have come out earlier, they ain't no stopping, because those messages had to be repeated at least 3 or 4 times to sink in the minds of Grenadians. That was too little, too late. This is where the ball was dropped. Now, so political strategy is important. Political strategy is important. I could say something else, but I won't. But we could have won that election with a little more push. 20 or so thousand people either didn't hear enough, didn't feel the vibes enough, or didn't trust enough to get out there. I want to say the last thing. I want to say it publicly. I hear from my vantage point both the green and the yellow campaign. Sometimes when the green campaign is ending at 7:30, the yellow campaign is now striking up and testing their mic. You can't win an election like that. You can't win an election like that. I remember going to a particular village, coming out after funeral, and the yellow machine is striking up a storm. So from the funeral, people just gathering around. I say, look at that. What strategy? Yeah? It's not that I praise them. I don't praise them. Because the sum total of their efforts is wrapped up in one word called deception. So I don't praise the green machinery. But we, the yellow people, never allow the yellow fever to hit Grenada in a real way. We were just too late, a little too disorganized. We must get out there early so that people can hear us and see us and feel us. Because I ain't leaving my teenage daughter to go out to a campaign meeting that is starting 8 o'clock because I ain't sure when she's going to get back home. Because everybody wants to hear, and I want to say this. I want to say this again. Everybody wants to hear the political leader. Everybody. The political leader comes in last. So 10 o'clock, 9:45, in comes Mr. Political Leader. But guess what? Most of the people have already left. They left. Well, I say to you, this is one of the reasons why I want to become the political leader of NDC when it comes to organization. Yeah? Because I have something there that can help. And whether or not I become political leader, I know I can still help as long as I'm, allowed to. I know I can help. But we have to get organized in a way that we would not disqualify technically ourselves from the race by not getting our message out there so that people can hear us.
What is your take? Well, first I should say, a somewhat common sentiment out there among the opposition elements is that there needs to be some kind of coming together, coalition or whatever you want to call it, of the opposition forces in order to defeat that green machine. What's your perspective on that?
Well, I hear the talk. The way I would answer this, is to say that if the votes are being split, you know what is going to happen. It would never favor the government in office. Yeah? But any kind of marriage has to be equally yoked and sensible. Because if you have an unequally yoked marriage, you are bringing problems to yourself. So these are things, yes, but it must be done with a measure of sobriety and caution. And that is as much as I would be prepared to say here. But engagement, discussions, of course.
Going forward, we know that we have to go through the election process, and the electoral office is at the center of everything to do with the with the electoral process, the parliamentary elections office, that is. There have been some concerns raised as to whether all of the functions that's been taking place are in keeping with the Representation of the People's Act, or the RPA as it's referred to. From your vantage point, what's your understanding of the situation, and what's your perspective of it?
Well, I have to be honest with you to say that since my coming into the front line of politics, I've heard a lot, yes, but in terms of actual connection with the office, Parliamentary Elections Office, I have not had that yet. And so I do not want to just repeat what I've heard on the subject.
Okay. Going forward, what would you say are some of the most, no, that's, a new future for Grenada. What's it going to take? I know you've spoken about, different areas of development. We've spoken about agriculture and so on. But in totality, what do you think is required, for a new future for Grenada? What are those elements of that new future for Grenada?
When I speak about a new future, I speak of one that is blessed by the Lord. And I make no apology for saying that. Because I believe that over the past few years here in Grenada, that we have drifted a lot. Now listen, I'm not saying that that my ascension to office is going to create a nation of saints. What I'm saying is that you will have for sure a man who knows how to pray and seek the face of God. One, who walks in integrity and is serious about it. Yeah? But this new future of Grenada, for Grenada, has to do, or has to be underscored by that marriage that I keep talking about, of certain important sectors: the tourism, agriculture, and business. Has to be managed. And also the inclusion of science and the technology in almost every single thing we do. That new future cannot be only about roads and tourism and big money and cornmen and cooks. The new future has to be about lifting up people, empowering people, giving people a reason to really go after their dreams in Grenada. There are a lot of young people in this country who has a lot of big dreams. Let them have a go at it. Provide a framework, whether it's educational exploits, whether it's in business, whether it's by way of some creative arts. Yes, the creative arts, it's a big one too, and that too plays a major role in the tourism industry. Yeah, whether it has to do with agriculture and healthcare, whatever it has to do, technology and the science must be brought together. But it cannot, nothing that we do in this country, nothing cannot be done in isolation of the people. We have left Grenadians. Grenadian people have been left behind. They have been forgotten. Brother, you see, when you feel that all that you need to do is simply have a safety net program in place, which is a good idea, mind you. We must have safety nets in place, of course, because we don't want people to slip through. But if you think that's all you need, and or all you need is a money program or some contract work, brother, we're in for trouble. Every worker who works with the government must be a salaried worker as long as they're not a political appointee. It's time to do away with contract work. If you are a political appointee, yes. If you are that specialized short-term thing that you do only for a specific period, yes. Short-term project, yes. Don't take my sons and daughters. Don't take our sons and daughters into contract work, because you're spoiling their future. Spoiling the future. We must stop it. It must be stopped. Government is about people, taking care of people's needs that they otherwise could not have taken care of by themselves. Government comes in, provides the framework. The people who are working there, after 20 years on contract, you just send them home, no gratuity, no pension. They cannot even, after 20 years working, you cannot get a proper job letter that says, I have been working for 20 years on a full-time basis with the government and is expecting a salary. But instead, that employee after 20 years can be fired like that. No.
Brother John?
Well. Phillip Telesford. Again, I am really very much sold, on your presentation here today. There's a question someone asked in the chat. Margaret Francis asked, is Mr. Telesford suggesting that age determines how familiar one is with technology? I sincerely hope not. How you respond to that?
Well, yes. And I have a little group, and they asked me something similar too. But in respect of, that question was directed at the Prime Minister.
Yes.
Right? In his role as the Minister for Youth and ICT for the region, if that is what you're referring to, I stand by my response.
But I thought I responded to it, and I said, I don't think so, but he was more referring to the PM inability to be leading that sector. That was my reply to that question. I hope I did justice to you that.
Because the Prime Minister is not Mr. Steve Jobs. He's not Mr. Steve Jobs. Yes? Yeah, he's not Mr. Steve Jobs.
Okay, I one of the things I was about to ask you, but I think that I didn't write it down, and it left my memory for a visit somewhere else. Someone was talking about, I believe one thing that one must believe in themselves, have been confident in themselves as a leader, and I've been watching some videos recently, some other politicians, and there was one who did not belong to any political organization, and he's considered being non-political, not a politician, but he's willing to deliver to the people what their needs are, and get parties to work together to produce and to bring the results what the people want. Unlike our democracy, the republic does not operate the same way as a democracy. And in the United States, for example, you get the House and you get the Senate to work together to bring bills and to pull them together to get things done. You made mention to the fact that as a young leader, you want to be trained, and I say this, I support that idea because a lot of times people get into politics or get in the Senate and they get appointed without any counseling, prior counseling, and even with the Constitution. A lot of people ask them about the Constitution, they have no clue and the functionality, even of their own role in politics. And it just seems to be a hype about going out there and campaigning, and when getting in the office, can't deliver, I can't function effectively in the role. And I support the idea of training to become better at what you're doing. So for me, that is a great idea. When one is willing to learn, it makes room for greatness, and to be more effective in whatever they do. I want something that you said too, and I just wanted to go back to that with the NDC's inability to deliver on time, effectively on time, with the message in the last election. I think they had a very, very good agenda, and I was discussing it long before today. Just within the election, I say, why is now they come out to this? It's too late. I was out here. I was saying, wow, why that wasn't like a year into the election being pushed? It's too late, and it is one of the things that need to be done early. Let the people know early, and repetition create a level of consciousness of that what it is. With lack of repetition, even though the information is there, not repeated effectively enough, people would not know it is there. You see? So to make people aware of it, you have to be put everywhere. Billboards, radio, TV, like we call for money. But all of this stuff have to be done. And I said it before, people say NDC need money. Why am I agreeing with that? In Grenada, we know what we do not want right now. We know what we do not want. So if you know what you do not want, you don't need money to get rid of it. You just need people to vote it out. Simple as that. We do not need money for expensive campaign to vote out Dr. Kit. Everybody know what they do not want. You hear them on Facebook, you hear them on WhatsApp, you see them everywhere. Email is being sent out, that's what we do not want. Then you don't need money to campaign against that. All I need to go when election time come to go and vote it out. That's what you do not want. Vote it out. And that's my position. You don't like it, vote it out. They did it before. So why you need money to vote it out? So what you do not like, what you don't want to see happening again, put the X, where you want, what you want to happen. And NDC, if you want NDC, and just. The other thing I wanted to just say here, and you made a very important point. Marriages need to be equally yoked, you know what I mean, for it to be effective. And the question of having alliances, the alliance must be in agreement with every level, not some of it. Because you don't want to have an agreement just to win the election, but we can't agree on anything else going forward. You see? So what is NDC's position? May it be TGM position, may it be GLP position. And when you're coming in, there must be a compromise. And if that compromise can be met and can be worked on pre-power, it cannot be done in power. So the arrangement or whatever it is have to be done. However, I personally don't believe that NDC needs a coalition to win the election. That's my position. That's John Calliste position, not General Firm position, that's my position. NDC does not need a coalition to win the election. I think they can do it because history over the last 3-4 years which prove that the people have been calling NDC to step up. They've been calling them to step up right up until now. They still call NDC to step up. To the people, NDC is not stepping up enough. So that's what the call is. The call wasn't for TGM. The call was never for GLP. The call has always been for NDC to come forward. Alright? I think that it's time that NDC answer the call of the people to come forward. But it's the people's responsibility to change the government they do not want. That's my piece.
That's your piece. Okay, Brother John. So, Brother John had his say. Any response to Brother John, Mr. Telesford?
Well, of course, I agree with him. I agree with everything he said. Very reasonable. And and especially as it refers to the coalition. NDC does not need a coalition to win the next election. I've always felt so, and I know so. You enter into an unholy wedlock. There is no guarantee that you're going to win.
Exactly.
You all may just come out being losers. But if you go as one strong organization, united in purpose, ain't nothing stopping you. Just give the people a reason to leave their homes and their business places to come and vote for you. And we have those reasons well documented. But we need a leader to deliver it to the people. And this is what we are about to do. And it will be done.
Yeah, I believe that.
But dialogue, yes. No problem with the dialogue.
So, Mr. Telesford, before you leave us this evening, this afternoon, it's still brilliant sunshine here in Sunset City. I don't know what you're getting down in the south. You know, I know it's been raining quite a bit all weekend. We've even had slide along the west coast, down before you enter Busan. So this is something that we have to be on the alert on the west coast. We know that those slides, especially with the weather like this, after all of the dry periods and getting extended periods of rain, we usually have situations like that. So we're asking our drivers, our commuters, to be careful along the road. And so before you leave us, Mr. Telesford, what convince me? I am not inclined to vote. I've voted before. I've tried both of the parties. In my mind's eye, they have failed me. But I want to see good for my country. Convince me as to why I should get out there to vote for the NDC with you as the leader of the party.
With Phillip Telesford?
Yeah, with Phillip Telesford.
The leader of the party?
Yes.
You vote for the next generation of Grenadians. You vote for the protection of Grenada's heritage and its future. You vote for a fish processing plant in St. Mark and a fish training school in Guelph. You vote for other processing plants right here in Grenada. And my record is there to prove that I do what I say. You vote for Phillip Telesford, you vote towards the eradication of poverty. Because you know what? I knew I grew up in poverty. I experienced it. And when you experience poverty, you really experience that evil, you don't want it, not even for your worst enemy. Yes? So, when you vote for me, a man who is in touch with ordinary people, who grew up in a poor family, who understand the heartbeat of Grenada, you vote in to eradicate poverty in this country, to fight against that thing, and to provide opportunities for ordinary, very ordinary people. Let's face it, there is only one set of people in this country that can get scholarships and has access to a better life. One set of people. And you see them, you know who they are. It's about time that the thing be opened up and that Mr. Unknown, his son, can get a scholarship, can get a loan, can get a grant to do his business. and that Mrs. Unknown, her daughter too, can be looked at in a real, genuine way. That our kidney patients no longer have to do barbecues or do this motorcade to get dialysis, but we can move aggressively and rapidly to arrest this problem here in Grenada once and for all. And that those guys who are there, when their family gets sick or when they get sick, they don't visit the emergency unit of the general hospital. They don't know what that is. I do. We will fix it. Even before we build a new hospital, we must fix that emergency unit so that when people go in there, they don't have to wait 8 and 9 hours to see a medical practitioner. They don't have to sit outside for the elements to beat against them, whether it's sun or rain, or high wind and cold breeze in the middle of the night. But we can address that quickly, expeditiously, now, like yesterday. These are things, and many more, and they're all subsumed in the NDC's plan. All of these things, they're not new. But what you need is somebody who's decisive. What you need is somebody who has the energy and the determination and the will to do these things. And that is me. And I'm ready for this.
Okay, Mr. Phillip Telesford, the man who is ready not only for the leadership of the NDC, but also for the prime ministership of the country. Any final words before we bring the curtains down for this afternoon, Mr. Telesford?
Sure, definitely. Well, I want to say a very special good evening to the constituency of St. George's Southeast. If it was not for you, I could not be here this afternoon. I stand on your shoulders. Thank you for the opportunity that you've given to me to represent you. And I am prepared to make you happy and to make you proud and to manage Southeast for the benefit of the entire population of Southeast St. George. And I also say thanks to the leadership of the National Democratic Congress, Chairman, Acting Political Leader, General Secretary, and all the others who have played their part and continue to play a part, the respective leaders. Good afternoon to you all, and I thank you for considering me. Not for you, I would not be here likewise, because I have to pass the litmus test at every level. So thank you very much, and I thank you, Brother Paul and Brother Calliste, for having me on your program. I thank every Grenadian who's listening in, signed in, whether it's on Facebook or any other platform, radio. I thank you for listening in and for the contributions that you've made to this program, the question that was posed. I say hello to all Grenadians, everyone who's listening out there in the diaspora. Good afternoon to you, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you and to meet you via this media.
Oh, well, so this is it. This is where we bring to a close this afternoon's Comfort Zone program. We were speaking there with Mr. Phillip Telesford, and as I would have mentioned earlier, for those of you who missed it, he is actually the caretaker for the St. George's Southeast constituency. That is the constituency where Mr. Gregory Bowen is the parliamentary representative. So he is going to be going up against Mr. Gregory Bowen, and he has also offered himself to be the leader of the National Democratic Congress, the main opposition party in the country, the NDC,